you have this really tax inefficient brokerage account that we should rebalance. And yes, it is going to trigger some capital gains, but we're much better off triggering those in 25 than we are in 26. So, it's things like that where, we're focusing in this last quarter on.
Welcome aboard the 21.5 Professional Pilots Podcast.
Rock on. You're on 121.5, the emergency frequency.
It's a show by professional pilots for professional pilots.
I looked back at them and I said, I don't think we're at the right airport. And they go, I don't think we are either.
Each episode, we bring you fascinating conversations with industry experts.
I think I should be a go-to on how to deal with 63, 64-year-old men.
You're going to chase it like a dog chasing a school bus.
But we're not just about the serious stuff. We're here to have fun.
And I like to sit with pilots a lot of times. I always say they're better looking than Tom Cruise.
It's a whole thing.
The 21.5 Professional Pilots Podcast is your destination for everything aviation, whether you're cruising in the flight levels or just starting your journey. Max, it is this time of year again, year end. We need to bring in our consigliere, our trusted financial advisor, Timothy P. Pope, now with a new company, 360 Aviation Advisors. Tim, I'm a new name, same great advice. Is that safe to say?
That is safe to say. New name, but doing all the same things. So, yeah.
Welcome
Tim,
back.
you have a very soothing voice. Has anyone ever told you that?
Yes, in fact.
Would you mind just recording something real quick for me tonight?
Yeah.
When I'm laying down to go for my 4:15 a.m. van. I'd like to try and go to bed early. So.
Can you count sheep for Max tonight?
Well, it's funny, right? So I used to work at a really big investment house, and I was on the phones, and I was in the retirement department. And are you guys familiar with Quadros?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So qualified domestic relations order, it's what you get when you get divorced. And so sometimes the parties didn't play very nicely. And, they'd call, they'd end up on my line. And, I'd have to walk these very angry ladies through the process. And by the time we were done, they kind of, calm down. So folks were like, man, you've got all this composure. If I could just bottle that up,
Hold on, Tim. I'm going to get my husband on the line. We're going to figure this out right now.
Let's not do anything rash here.
Everybody relax.
Somebody else, was a friend, was like, hey, man, you sound like a late night DJ or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That's what I mean. I can totally picture you, like me putting you on like some sort of podcast when I'm trying to go to bed. Like, hey,
smooth jazz.
Yeah,
exactly. Smooth jazz with Tim Pope.
That's right. Wow.
Oh,
so
man.
Good.
That's funny.
That could be a side gig.
I love it. Do you ever have to engage in that, Tim, a little finesse when you got a client and they're trying to spend some money and you're like, listen, this isn't a good idea right now.
Let's just pump the brakes.
Why don't you wait until you upgrade before doing this?
How about we set some goals before you can make this purchase?
This is why Tim is the best in the business. When you sign up with Tim, you're getting from every angle, 360 degrees, right? Is that why you call it 360 Aviation Advisors?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a number of reasons, 360, right? Like that's the north heading. And so as financial planners, our clients plan, that's their dreams, that's their goals, that's their desires for their family. And so as we plan that out, that's always tracking. That's what we always want to be tracking is their north. And then for us as planners, 360, like our clients for us is our north, right? So it keeps us aligned on the same page. And then lastly, it's a circle. So we take a comprehensive view. Some folks are just focused on investments. Some folks are just on insurance or just on real estate or just on taxes. And we look at all of it, right? So, 360 degrees of your financial picture. And then Aviation Advisors, that part says, we professional pilots. So that's what we do.
It's a great name. It
Yeah.
really resonates with me. The circle resonates with me because that's all that's in my bank account is a big circle. So maybe I need to hire you, Tim. I don't know.
you know what's, oh man, tangents. But I showed my kids this thing where, and maybe you've seen it, but there's this guy, and he wrote empty on a whiteboard. So EMPTY. And so it's empty. And then he erases some and it's like MT. And then he keeps erasing it and he keeps saying empty over and over.
Yes.
I'm butchering it now. But
I know.
Have you
I've seen
that
this.
one?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my kids have fun with that. So it sounds like you got a lot of.
Yeah. I can relate with that. Yeah. It's always empty.
Is there like ones in front of the zeros, or is there?
There's
Listen,
some.
don't let him fool you.
Yeah. There's
Dylan
some.
holds at least 100 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'm pretty
Right.
sure.
All right. Well, Tim, we've got a big show. We've had conversations with you. It seems like about the same time of year every year. End of the year, there's a lot going on, right? We got open enrollment. We have decisions about tax things, kind of the last chance to make some contributions, maybe to 529s and other things. So a lot to think about here in the last couple of months of the year. So what have you been talking to with your clients at the end of the year, kind of the to-do list or things to pay attention to?
Yeah, great question. So right now, I mean, major airlines are cranking up open enrollment season. There's just this couple of week period where you've got to make a lot of decisions. Sometimes your life has changed, pretty drastically. Maybe you got married or got divorced. Maybe you moved. Maybe you had a child. Maybe you became a widow. So there's a number of things that could change to influence your open enrollment decisions. Maybe you're now responsible for adult parents, right, and aging parents. And so when you look at open enrollment, it's going to be your usuals, like your healthcare, your HSA, vision, dental, and so on. And then a lot of places also have a nice little legal benefit, which I keep pounding on because like 60% of the people do not have a will and their estate plans in place. And so
60% of pilots or 60% of people?
60% of people.
Oh, okay.
If I had to poll incoming pilots that are new to working with us, it would also be 60% of pilots.
Really? No will? Not, like no
Really?
trust? Nothing, huh?
Nothing, man. Nothing. And so,
Well, so when you're invincible,
That's
Tim,
right.
You don't,
Can't
when you're
believe that happened to
basically a
that other guy.
superhero, you don't need
Yeah.
those kind of things.
yeah. So, and it's like, so those are some of the things with open enrollment. And sometimes maybe your life has been pretty static and status quo, but it's still worth it to look because sometimes the company is changing benefits on you. Like I think there's 2 airlines right now that are changing healthcare providers. That's pretty big. So it's like, like are the doctors that I'm used to using, like, are they still going to be a network? The price has changed. Has the benefits also changed? Like, what is my dollar getting me now? So, it's just keep an eye on that. Don't on the open enrollment side.
Do you go through this with your clients to help them on certain things? Will people call you? I guess I never really thought of asking my financial advisor when doing open enrollment.
Yeah, we do. And so, clients will say, hey, like, we've already got some of the major airlines benefits out, and they'll shoot it over. And then they'll say, hey, can we go through this? And we'll schedule a call, right? And go through. Particularly, like, so, sometimes it's really, really valuable if there's 2 spouses who work and they both have different benefits, right? Because I think, Max, your wife is in the benefit business, so you kind of
Yep.
know like how valuable this stuff could be. There was one couple, they had just been like, hey, husband's benefits, they were doing, their thing, and wife's benefits, she was doing her things. We put them together and figured out what would be best for them and ended up saving $12,000
Wow.
just on benefits by combining and, doing the best plan for the family. So.
Yeah, that's what I was just literally before we sat down to record this was at dinner, and I was telling the captain I was with that I was having dinner, or that we were going to record a podcast with Tim, and I was trying to explain to him, like, that Tim is a financial planner, but he specializes in pilots. And the thing is that really sets you apart, I think, is that you actually know like the airline contracts and we have all kinds of weird stuff. Like we have, like even in my airline, we have, your 401k, and then there's a top hat contribution that like a lot of people don't even know what that means. And like there's all these weird things that and somehow you are able to stay on top of that with all of the big airlines, which it's hard enough on just one big airline. So
Not all of them. Like the 4 majors and 2 cargos.
Yeah, that's what I meant by big, Tim.
Tim, let's get into the PSA contract here really quick. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, I think that's really important because it's very foreign to most financial planners, the whole airline deal. So I think that's where the value comes in for sure.
Yes. Something else that you mentioned, Dylan, was the year-end impact on tax planning. And that, earlier this year we had new tax legislation come on. So like if folks go back to, I don't know, 2 years ago when I was on the show and I was kind of beating the drum about like, hey, we know, or we expect the tax rates to go up at the end of 2025. Well, certainly I say I always treat the future with the deference it deserves because tax rates are not changing. Surprise, surprise. But with the OBBB, there are some goodies in there, right? So the enhanced child tax credit, SALT, so your state and local income tax deduction is expanded. For years it was $10,000, and now it's expanded out to $40,000. But all of these have income thresholds attached to it. And so with tax planning, there's a couple of things. There's one is a super basic, like, hey, am I over withholding or am I under withholding, right? If you're going to get a pretty big refund at the end of the year, some people get upset about it. Some people are like, oops, right? But you're getting a check back. But if you gotta stroke that check, a 20 grand check or 30 grand check, like that hurts more than say getting a $10,000 or $15,000 refund, right? So we want to make sure that there's no surprises in that way. Typically we do it throughout the year, and then Q4 is just really to tighten it up, right? Matter of fact, I had 2 meetings today. It was like, hey guys, we can throttle back on the federal tax withholdings because your one was tracking a $9,000 refund, and that's if they didn't withhold anything else in the fourth quarter, and then the other one is like kind of perfect, right? So that's the tax withholdings. But then the other thing with tax planning is comparing, hey, what's my 25 income? Because we've got a pretty decent idea now that we're in the fourth quarter. And what do I expect to make in 26? And how is that going to differ, right? Is that going to, in 26, am I going to be in a higher bracket? Are some of those tax credits that I talked about going to go away? Maybe I have a child that's going to turn 17 next year, and so the tax credit's going to go away. Maybe I plan to get married and bring 2 incomes together, and then I'm going to miss out on some tax deductions. So if you find that that's the case, like if we're either moving up bracket, we're going to be losing credits or decreasing deductions, if you find that that's the case, then there could be things that you want to do now, like in 2025. So give you an example. Client retired from the Air Force and is now signed on with a major. Now he's getting military retirement, and then has a child. So like kind of that example that I mentioned is going to turn at different age next year. So there's a lot in flux. But when we compare 25 to 26, it was like, hey, you know what? You have this really tax inefficient brokerage account that we should rebalance. And yes, it is going to trigger some capital gains, but we're much better off triggering those in 25 than we are in 26. So, it's kind of, it's things like that where, we're focusing in this last quarter on, and then also things like Roth conversions, right? Same kind of idea. I'm not going to go down the whole line, but hey, should we do those now or should we be waiting for another time?
Well, the other thing too, Tim, is we're starting to see, as you mentioned, airlines starting to hire again. And if you're already at a major, it's one thing if you're like a third year narrow body FO and then you're going to fourth year pay, maybe on the narrow body, but maybe you're going to actually be jumping out to wide body, and it's going to be like a pretty significant change. So I imagine there could be some strategery there as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. When you say going out to wide, I mean, just United comes to mind because we've had several. I had to go to the triple, and then go to, matter of fact, there's one couple that both pilots, and one went to the 7-8, one went to the triple. And absolutely, when you talk about the planning it out, in that case, we're just expecting to see a lot of deductions go away just because you're up over the threshold. But let's say you're, maybe a single income household and you went from, say, the 7-3 to the triple. I mean, that's significant. I mean, that's going from like, high 200s to could be low 400s, right? So that's, that's pretty significant there. To see that, and we're also talking brackets moving. So, hey, if there's something we need to lock in 25, then let's do it. Like, as we're talking, there's a client that comes to mind who's like, hey, they're going to training to upgrade a captain. It's not wide body, but upgrading a captain, that's also significant, going from FO to captain. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the few jobs sometimes you can sort of plan your promotion a little bit. Like you can actually, see it coming. Doesn't always guarantee it, but you could sort of be like, it kind of looks like I'm going to be making more
or
money
you
soon.
can decide when you're going to bid for it, because a lot of people don't take first available, just, when they decide they want to hold it, or they can hold it, but decide when they want to go. So.
Yep. Very true.
Quality of life.
That's right. What other year-end things, Tim? Anything else to kind of put on folks' radar?
Well, 529s, with the contributions, those don't have a federal tax deduction, but a lot of states have a tax deduction. And so I've been doing a lot of work with 529s here recently. Not all state plans are made the same, but if your state does give you a 529 deduction, then hey, why don't we capture it? Some states cap you out at 10,000, or if you're married filing jointly, 20,000 to offset that state income tax. Some states, it's kind of an unlimited, right? So hey, you put in $100,000 because you sold a property or something, then you can reduce your state income tax by that 100,000 in that year. Those are some states. And then some years, some states say, hey, here's the amount that you can reduce your income tax by. And if you can't use it all this year, then you can carry that forward. So just check your state to see if you're planning to do the 529. And the other thing, well, this is not a year-end thing, but it's just, thinking about it. I've talked to some clients, they love the 529. Some clients were a little skittish about it. Like, hey, what if my kids don't go to school and so on. With the OBBB, it's really expanded the flexibility of the 529. So, you don't necessarily have to be a degree-seeking program. It could be a credentialing program. And that could help, with the kids' education that way. So.
Yeah, and I know this is we went through the same thing of like, we're going to have too much money stranded in here, and then our kids going to go to college. I didn't realize that, one, you can actually use it for K through 12 expenses also. And I just looked this up because I thought I had heard this. You can also roll it into a Roth IRA, unused portions, and maybe another account. I don't know what an ABLE account is too, but it looks like there's more flexibility, like you said. So maybe less worried about putting money in there than before.
Well, that's it. I mean, the Roth IRA is huge because when I think about professionals who, we all want to give our kids a good leg up, right? And so when I think about folks who do well professionally, there's a few things they have in common. One, a great financial example. From those around, or if they didn't have a good one, it drove them the other way to get educated along the way. So
they listen to the right podcasts, maybe.
They probably listen to Pilot's Portfolio.
That's right. Tim's podcast. If you haven't heard it, we're going to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, check that out. But so I was saying you get good financial examples, right? but also they're able to graduate with no debt, right? They're able to start that professional life with no debt. So you think about that. The 529 allows them to go to school, start their professional life. And if there's a little money left over, then great, we can roll up to $35,000 into a Roth, which is fantastic. Those first couple of years that they're, that they're working, they're able to roll it over. And the other thing is, that was last year, 2025 or 2024, when that came out, 24, I think. So I expect, particularly by the time my littles are ready to go, that number will be, indexed by inflation, right? So it's probably going to be a bigger number than 35,000 to the Roth. So.
And that way, when college is obsolete because of AI, you'll have something, somewhere to
then
put
you
that
just
money.
roll right
So
into the
that's
Roth.
great.
It's perfect.
That's perfect.
Early start on retirement,
Yeah. It's perfect. You're going to be retired
When you
anyways.
get that universal basic income, you just,
Oh my word.
You just send the UBI check
I guess
right
that's
in.
a topic for another podcast.
Oh my gosh. It is.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Those are some really good points. And, there is some strategy. I mean, listen, it's interesting. I know some pilots listening to this show are flight instructors and they're going, I don't know what you guys are talking about. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm like looking forward to my next bowl of ramen, but it's crazy how in this career, there's like this S curve. And once you start writing that S curve up, the income and the money, it happens fast where there is quite a bit of money, and it does take a lot of strategy to manage it wisely. So I know for some pilots listening to this, they're like, I'm not even following this, but there are others. This is really important.
Some of them are like, yeah, God, I really need to get started on that 401k that my
Yeah,
company offers.
Exactly.
I should really contribute to that
next year. Yeah.
Next year, after Christmas, I got to buy presents, but then.
Yeah. Well, that kind of shifts gears into a couple of different observations Max and I were talking about the other day, Tim, which is flying with different pilots. And it seems like there's a couple that you find all the time. And that is one, the super cheap super saver. The guy or gal who makes a ton of money, picks up open time all the time, and they are just living the cheapest version of themselves. Stealing the hotel soaps, never spend any money, eating out of a bag. We all know exactly what we're talking about. And then the other one is the guy that's making $400K, $500K, and never seems to have more than a couple bucks to his name. So it's a funny dichotomy. I know of what you run into, Max. I'm sure you've flown with a few on either side of the fence.
Yeah, sometimes you just wonder, like, there's self-awareness. You're like, do you not like see your pay? Like some of these, it's so funny because I still live in my house that was built in the 80s. I've owned it for 20 years. It's and which is fine. I mean, everybody's picks whatever lifestyle they're accustomed to. The craziest example is there's a third phenotype in this that's like the person that works obsessively for no reason, like that makes
just a
tons
stack.
of literally, dude. There are people out there that work and will make 7 figures, literally over $1 million, and live in an apartment with a plastic injection molded patio table as their kitchen table. This person exists in real life, and and has no kids, no wife, no nothing. And you know what his estate plan is? Tim, don't fall back in your chair. He's just like, yeah, I'm just going to give it to the state, I guess. I got no one else.
Wow. Huh. Have you flown with this
person? This is a real person. No. Not yet. I'm waiting.
Wait, you said no wife, no kids. Did any former wives?
I don't believe so.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Well,
give it to the state.
Look, I mean, my question is he happy?
No. It's miserable. It's a whole nother set of problems. I'm just saying, we're talking like real far out there, but there is a wide spectrum, and I would say most people fall squarely in the middle that are pretty, healthy from a standpoint of realizing their position in life and also planning to meet future financial goals and balancing that. But there are people that you're like, you can't fool me. We have the same contract. I know how much money you make. Like you are, I can look at your schedule for the last 3 months. Like I know what you literally to the penny. I could with a hand calculator figure it out, and they act like. And then there's people that live, but then the best is the person that lives and whose monthly obligations are well in excess of their income at guarantee. That's the one. That's the stressful way to live is for people. There's no premium.
Yeah,
There's no open time. I got bills to pay.
Tim, I mean, you have to meet all these different people as you work with them. Is there such a thing as like a financial therapist? Are you the financial therapist, or like, do you try to change people's minds at all, or help them get perspective, or like, how do you manage crazy pilots and money?
Yeah, and what do you think the difference is?
Yeah.
Well, those are some really good questions.
He's going in the deep voice. Okay, we're ready, Tim. Go ahead. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, there are financial therapists out there. I do not have that designation.
Okay.
But you are right that we work with a lot of folks from different backgrounds and that have different motivations, right? And so when you think about, maybe let's address the super saver first. My thing is, there is a very real possibility, like pilots don't have an income problem, or today's pilots. Let me say that right now. Tomorrow, who knows? But right now, there's typically not an income problem. And so for super savers, folks that are just uncomfortable unless they're saving just lots and lots of money, sometimes that comes from just a personal experiences of where folks have been, right? So the older pilots, that is their MO, they could have been raised by folks that have gone through, or, just they had that Great Depression era.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. Like, I bet a lot of it has to do with their upbringing.
Yeah. So there's that, hey, I've tasted scarcity and it didn't taste really good. And so now I want to compensate. Now, my thing is as long as somebody is like, if they're living their best life and they're saving lots and lots and lots, like, I'm okay with that. I do like to mention that, hey, you know what? You're probably not in danger of outliving this money here, right? Like, so sometimes it's we may be able to take our foot off the gas.
Yeah.
But folks, and I tell you, sometimes that can be a stressful analysis for people to go through and something to grapple with. And sometimes it can take a long time to give themselves permission to spend money. But as long as they're living their best life and they're happy about it, I'm cool with it. I think where the trouble comes in is where you're saving every penny and you're making it tight on yourself, and then you're grumpy about that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we do have enough here, and you could probably loosen up a little bit, and and give yourself a little bit more flexibility.
I think what's interesting for airline pilots is that a lot of times as an airline pilot, you're directly trading time for money, right? And it's a pretty good correlation in most respects. Now, obviously, you can fly less than guaranteed, whatever, but there's also this person that is addicted to the juice, and like the fact that the potential to make money, they feel like they have to capitalize on, right? Mm-hmm. And they get addicted to that, like to the premium and the open time. And they get to sign up for the text alerts, and they just can't turn down, a premium trip on the weekend when, and they're always willing to trade that time for the money. And I think that's another thing too. That is truly a problem for people. Like they get into this thing where they can't pass the opportunity.
Well, I think part of it too is, Max, the money is so large. Like, I don't know how to, I know like a green slip or whatever, Delta's big, but I mean, and even just like for the corporate guys, like a contract trip, right?
Same thing.
Like, we used to get paid a few $100 to do a contract trip for a day. Now it's a few thousand. And now the phone rings and it's like, hey, can you go fly? Your kid's got a baseball game on Saturday, but hey, you can go make $2,500. And it's one of those things where it's like, geez, it's really hard to say no when the dollars are going higher and higher. And especially at an airline, especially when there's a lot of premium, and that's like, there's always that opportunity. It's really hard to revalue your time when the dollars are high.
Oh, dude, I have a great example. One time I finished flying and I'm walking out of the airport. I'm walking to my car and I get a text from a random number. It says,
Hey, you up?
if you don't want that, I got JA, junior signed, right? Whatever. And they're like, if you don't want that JA, it's double time, right? If you don't want that, I'll take it from you. I'm like, what JA? And I look at my phone and sure enough, I'd been signed a JA trip. And this is like on Thursday, and we're supposed to go on a ski trip on Friday for the weekend, right? Short ski trip. And I look at it and it's like a 2-day, like it was easy. It paid double time. It was ridiculous. And it was just, it's a total golden handcuff situation. And I was free. Like there was no one that could catch me. Like normally they'll notify you, like the gate agent, hey, call scheduling, blah. I was already gone. I had escaped. Right. So I don't have to do anything. I don't have to answer my phone. I don't have to respond to this. I'm totally scot-free and they'll do whatever they do.
He was wearing a janitor's outfit at the time. Don't ask a lot of questions.
Or even worse. Yeah. Or even worse. Yeah. Well, I was in a trash bin actually.
Yeah. Right. He was in the catering cart getting.
That's besides the point. Yeah. Here, Dylan. I was in a catering truck. But
nice try, guys.
Nice try, guys. And I was wearing a horse mask, and but yeah, it's a total case of the golden handcuffs. And like, I ended up like, I was like, dude, it's like all. And the problem is, I could go get away with it and go, and all I'm going to be thinking, like, oh, this, in Arizona ski trip that I'm on, I could have gone to Aspen, at the Ritz for what it just cost me.
That's the thing. It's what this is going to cost me. Yeah.
Dude, I took the trip and we postponed the ski trip, and I'll never forget that, dude. That was a total, like, it was golden handcuffs. It would have been irresponsible to do otherwise, because we could go on a ski trip another weekend for how much money that was. And I think people set up these text alerts and they see the trips and they just can't turn it down, and they get into a thing where it's like, for what? Like, that's what you have to ask yourself. You have to ask yourself what you're trading the time for money for what? Like, what, if you don't know what the what is, if you don't have a goal, what you're trying to do, because Tim said, I have to save this much more a year, or whatever the what is, you just have to, I think you have to know what the what you're trading your time for, because the time you can never get back. Once it's gone, that's it. Like, it's not Marty McFly. You can't go back to 1985. So I think that's what people have to keep in perspective.
You nailed it. You nailed it. Because I was going to say, with the financial planning process, we talk about folks' goals. We talk about what their why is. And part of the process is once you define that, once you figure out what your number is, like how much you need, and then you add a healthy margin of safety just for the unknowns, market downturns, job loss, right? Whatever. Like you add that margin of safety, that can be really liberating. So then you can be choosy with your time. But I think the circumstance that you described, Max, I mean, we all feel that. Like, I'm not a pilot. I feel that. Like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I think it'd be nice to do da, 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 da. And then, like, because, the mind just works and it gets into overdrive, and like, oh, you're already like 5 steps down. And then it's like, well, Tim, why? Like, what are you going to accomplish? So, I got a handful of kids, and, moving from the broker dealer to 360 Aviation Advisors, which is the independently owned RIA that I serve pilots through. So it's my firm. That was a ton of work for the past like 24 months. Not only that, but you're doing all the regular things. And then it was somebody's bright idea to like, oh, I got to get this instrument rating before my 2 years after taking the written runs out. And oh, by the way, I'm studying for my tax designation. It was terrible. It was terrible. So on the back side of that, I'm like, oh, you know what you're feeling right now? This is what peace feels like. This is what contentment feels like. This is, I've got what I've worked for and it tastes really good. And I can go spend time with my kids. Oh, it's, throw the bikes in the back of the truck and go.
The key to that too is you have to be, I mean, you're talking to a dude that has, 2 jobs and a podcast and a lot on my plate. But I do like literally constantly evaluate that and like figure out, okay, how much time is this taking now? And I'm not, if I'm not willing to give up X amount of free time, something has to give somewhere else. And it's an ebb and flow, and it's a balance that you have to constantly evaluate. And sometimes, it gets unbalanced for sure. Sometimes I'm like, I'm too heavy, on the work. Or sometimes I'm like, I probably could have not dropped that trip last week.
But and there's going to be seasons, right? And I sometimes want to get folks to think about like, there's seasons, right? And so for a season of my life, it was a season to just grind. It's still a season to grind, but sometimes it's going to be more than others. And then there's going to be a season to like pull back. And, talking about, I think what your question was is the folks where it's always a season just to chase. And maybe they need to be reminded about what their why is. Maybe they need to develop the why. Because maybe it's not there. Or maybe that's their happy place. And so
Max, have you ever met somebody that's told you later on they regret dropping a trip? I don't ever really remember too many people being like, I regret not doing that.
Well, yeah, I've met people that regret dropping a trip when they couldn't replace it with a premium trip. Which was the intent of dropping the trip. That's typically
true.
But no, I mean, dude, yeah, life's short. I think the point of the whole conversation is you have to keep all of these things in perspectives, and you have to keep looking yourself in the mirror and looking at your time. And that goes for everything from like, even we've talked about doing home projects and, doing something yourself versus paying somebody to do it versus, or going to work that day to pay somebody to do it. So, because maybe that takes less time or that's a better use of your time or whatever, you determine. But, that's what one of my favorite quotes is: money is not the prime asset, time is.
Yeah. But here's the greatest irony following on that quote. There's no certified time planners out there. There's a million certified financial planners. Tim's the best one there is. But there's no one that's going to help you do this. It's on you to manage your time.
There's only like 80,000, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. But it's funny. Like, I mean, I'm sure there's somebody you could hire that can go through and help you manage your time. But like, that's just a skill you have to build on your own. And I know that's one thing that I've found I've had to work on quite a bit, especially when you do, or kind of, I want to say, get to that career job where maybe you're at the regional or a major airline, or maybe you're at that sort of corporate position that you're content at, is like you've been used to climbing that ladder, right? We have so many goals as a pilot. I got to get 100 hours. I got to get my instrument rating. Now I'm getting my commercial, and I'm just constantly chasing up this thing. And at some point, there is a gear where you do shift. Like you said, Tim, it's not the time to grind anymore, but there is that time management aspect. And I know it's one thing I still got to get better at. But it's a work in progress for me.
Or you can just figure out how to be more efficient. That's the other variable. Hence the podcasting while on the road. It's why you often see me in hotel rooms.
Talking about time, because none of us know how much time we have. But I think like the second part of your question earlier was, we talked about the super savers, but then guys that are strapped. And I think that there might be either a misunderstanding or maybe a lack of respect, if I may, of time. for in those situations too, because, I'm thinking, I mean, you guys have to, right now at the airlines anyway, you've got to retire at 65. So how long am I going to live this strapped lifestyle? Like I'm not going to have to step away and not fly the jet anymore, because the time behind you can't get back. Time is an extraordinary compounder of your investment. Time compounds all decisions, actually, but it compounds your investment. And so at some point you're gonna have to say, hey, like, I want to control get control of my life back. I want to get control of my money back, and maybe not stretch myself so thin and and spend money that I don't have or that I'm not making, or just spending everything that I make. I mean, that's just as bad.
Yeah. Well, and the thing too is that as a pilot and with seniority, your the amount of money you're compensated for your time goes up, right? But the value of time is also not constant. That's the thing. That's the mistake people make sometimes, is to think that the value of your time when your kids are young
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was
and
just
you
gonna
can attend
say.
baseball games and things like that, versus the value of your time when you're 62 and your kids maybe don't even live in the same city you do anymore, and you're just, playing golf on your days off or whatever you do. You have to evaluate the value of your current time versus your future time. And
Can we call it premium time, Max? How do we've got to
yeah,
we
probably.
need a whole
Let's put
graph.
this in terms that everyone can understand.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, it is. It's
So
like it's like
when your
the
kid's
magic window.
graduating, let's think of this as double time.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, milestone events, that would be like a double time trip. Okay.
I'm picking up premium time this weekend.
Now, yeah, when your kids are in sports and they're young and it's important for you to be there, that would be like premium.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the premium windows. I feel like it's from about 3 to 12.
Yeah. When they
That's like
want to
the
hang out with
prime
you.
age where they want to hang out with you. It's great to be, and then, but I don't know. Tim, do you have a spreadsheet for this?
Yeah. Can you
Can we
spreadsheet
calculate
this
this? How does
Tim,
this
is
work?
there any way?
No, but my gut says that you guys are right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just it's something you don't want to get wrong, because that is a tough bowl of regret to live with, I think, when you're older. And I've met people that live with that, and that is not a spot I want to find myself in.
I know, absolutely. And I think, I mean, going back to, so you guys are talking about the value of time, spending time with family for sure. And I 100% agree. I was kind of thinking about it as the financial planner, the value of time, of, hey, if I'm not a super saver, if I'm a super spender, right? Like I've got to rein that in, and I've got to redirect those dollars to a future tomorrow where I'm not going to be able to make the same amount of money as I'm making today. Max, earlier you were like, oh yeah, you were joking, but talking about, oh, I should probably get on that 401k thing. I'll do it next year after Christmas kind of thing. And it's like, man, just a 10-year difference, starting at 30 versus starting at 40. Oh, it is just, if you look at that and you start late, you're going to be kicking yourself, saying, hey, why didn't I start earlier? And I think that's something that's not as well understood, even if you start small. The earlier you start, the smaller you could start. Although I kind of say the earlier you start, just go big until your life requires that you kind of pull back, right? Because, your future self will thank you. But if you're, say, 40 or 45 and you're like, hey, I should probably get serious about it, you don't have the luxury of investing small. Like you're going to have to go hard, for the next 25 years or so.
Yeah, it's funny that in high school most people graduate and they don't know how compounding interest works. They don't know how an amortization is calculated on a loan. They don't know so many things that can be so impactful the sooner you understand how those things work. And those are things that I'm like pretty intentional about making sure my kids know before they go off into the real world, to understand the principles of how this works and how you pay most of the interest first on a loan. Like it's no.
What? Hold
So
on.
if you pay off, if you pay off that loan early and you look at what the effective interest rate was, it's quite high.
Let me
Or
write
if you
that down here.
refinance your mortgage after 3 years, every 3 years, you're really not,
But I
you know, just
I got a good rate though, Max.
yeah, but it's going to drop my payment $200.
Yeah.
Oh
You
my
know,
word! Now we're
I know.
talking.
Look at Tim's about to lose it.
Tim's gonna lose it.
And the other thing too, but the compounding interest, dude. If you do that, say, okay, let's just do some crazy math right now. Let's say you saved $100 a month for starting when you were this age, and you project that out. That's really impactful to see the numbers and see the math. And that's the only way that I think you can get people to understand. Because that's the thing. Most people just don't understand. Now, if you understand you're making a choice, well, that's another thing. But if you just really aren't able to grasp that concept, because nobody showed you, because they don't teach life math 101 in high school. Like you learn calculus and a lot of other things that could arguably
Most
not
people
be as
don't
useful.
use.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was an advisor at a bank for a few years, and I'd sit on these quarterly calls, the earnings calls, and it'd be like, well, this quarter we earned this much in revenue, and the primary driver was credit cards. And that would make me sick. I mean, I'm not a sales guy, so the sales culture at the bank channels, that it wasn't for me. But just hearing this many billions of dollars that the bank earned from credit card fees and interest, and then as folks would, and you'd hear it all the time, folks would walk in, and the bankers are rewarded, they're incentivized for how many credit card applications they can open. And so I'd sit with folks. I was an advisor, wasn't a banker. And I said, hey, I'm like one of the only people in this building that's trying to help you build equity. Everybody else is trying to, float your debt. And it's true. I mean, from all, like when you guys were coming up and if you got a car loan, right, 36 months, 48 months kind of thing, and then, 60 months, 72 months, 84 months now on like a depreciating asset. That's crazy. But oh, well, if I do it, then it's going to do what, Max? It's going to drop the payment, my monthly payment.
Yeah. I know that people or in high school, they never teach you how your credit score works, how to build credit, what affects your credit, your revolving debt, like all these things. It's just like, dude, I don't know. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Look, there's hope, right? But I would say this, like, right, if there's a pilot that's out there listening to this, and they're and this is hitting them, and they're saying, hey, you know what? Maybe I hear myself in this conversation. Maybe I'm spending everything, or maybe my finances are just kind of like I'm making $300,000, $400,000 a year, and I feel like I'm living paycheck to paycheck. My advice is start when you want to change that. Number one, it can be changed. And number two, it doesn't take as long as you might think. I've got some great success stories that folks that I've worked with. I'm not going to share. I think they might listen to the content. I don't know. But anyway, some great success stories. And I am just thrilled over the moon with these people of the progress that they've made. And it's huge. And it did not take that long. But if you find yourself saying, hey, you know what, I really want to take control of this, I would implore you to go with the approach that nothing's off the table. Just start there. Say nothing's off the table. Because if you come to the table and there's too many protected interests, then how effective are we going to be? But if you say, hey, nothing's off the table, I really need to make a change, then you're going to make that change. It's not going to take that long.
It's well said, Tim. I was thinking of another term for you, certified time consultant. And I was thinking you're basically the CFI for money. Sort of. Another idea. I don't know. We're workshopping this. I'm not sure.
least let me be the
CFI for
double
money.
I.
I want to shift gears for a minute, Tim, and talk a little bit about your podcast, Pilot's Portfolio. There's a link in the show notes to your podcast. And you've been covering a number of interesting topics, and I just wanted to bring some attention to a couple of them. If folks, you did a podcast for each of the major airlines about what happens if you lose your medical while working at one of those airlines. I think I want to draw listeners' attention to that and go take a look at that, especially if you're at one of those airlines. I think that'll really be eye-opening for you about what actually happens from the financial side. What does ALPA do? What does your union do? All of that kind of stuff. But the one that I wanted to ask you about is we've been talking about starting this 401k, and you've got a podcast episode called "Is Your 401k a Scam?"
Oh.
So can you tell us which airlines 401ks are scams? What's all this about?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Yeah, catchy title. That just came from folks that are like, you got folks who believe in the capital markets, and then you have folks who don't believe in the capital markets. So it's like, well, I don't want my money in the 401k, or like, hey, you know what? They're gonna raise taxes out of the roof, and I'm gonna have to pay like out of the wazoo on that. That could be true in the future, depending how far down the line you go. But what we found is that no, there are no airline 401ks that are scams. In fact, there's a lot of protections surrounding. I mean, you think about unlimited creditor protection inside the 401k. You think about a lot of flexibility to do the pre-tax or the Roth, the tax deferred or the tax-free growth inside of those things is great. And then, the president signed this executive order to have, private placements looked at. So private equity looked at in the form. I think that's going to take some time, and it'll probably be mild version if and when that happens. But, so the 401k is evolving, and it replaced the defined benefit. Now, let me ask you, is your 401k a scam, or the airline pensions of old a scam?
Yeah, ask those guys that are getting checks from the PBGC and see what they say.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, Max and I both worked for guys that, thought they had a lot of money coming to them, and they retired, and it all disappeared. So, at least the 401k, like you said, it's protected from creditors. It's yours. No matter what happens to your airline, it's yours. And that's a huge step in the right direction for our volatile business. So, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing with Pilot's Portfolio, so we did the medical, which that was really well received. I got some flack from some of the freight dogs. They were like, "Hey, what about FedEx and UPS? So we got to do that and put that out there." And so we can round out that picture. But some of the content ideas we're thinking about is having some live question and answer sessions. So like right now, folks can write in, kind of like you guys' flight advice in your mailbag. They can write in. But we're thinking about just, hey, like, if a listener wants to come on the show and ask, and we can, protect identity and things like that, but come on the show and ask their questions and kind of get some live responses as it relates to financial planning for the airline professional. So we'll see how that goes and if that takes, but that might be interesting.
I think you need to have the live hotline of like after somebody's flown with a captain who's dispensing a ton of advice, you can like talk them off the ledge of like, no, you do not need to buy the call options for Caterpillar in June of 27 or whatever.
Yeah, little 800 number.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a bad idea.
Tim, do you?
My name is Billy, and I'm an airline.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you get your Q&A going, if you want to use our third host, Reggie, we would be willing to put him on loan, our AI host, if you need
available.
some help.
I've enjoyed hearing Reggie do the ad reads. I thought that's quite nifty, actually.
What about Dylan trying to impersonate Reggie doing the ad reads?
That was bad.
That's a dumpster fire.
I don't think we've have we. I'm not sure we've released that episode yet, but it was not good. My worst Reggie voice, but yeah,
keep trying.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a raise. That's harder than I thought. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, Tim, anything else that you want to let pilots know about before we wrap this episode up?
I think we covered a lot. I mean, we covered open enrollment that you guys are facing right now, and then year-end things, tax planning, wealth conversions, accelerating capital gains or deferring. I'm just knowing if you're facing upgrades or moving over to the wide body, change in life circumstance, marriage, divorce, death, things like that. So we covered all those things, and then you guys kind of brought some scenarios to the table. So no, I think that's it. Like if folks want to learn more, 360 Aviation Advisors. I'm sure that the information's in the show notes there. Schedule an appointment, go check out the website, and see how we can help.
There's a form when you do the contact form, there's a box you can check for the deep voice Tim.
I was just hold on real quick, Tim. Can you just say this really in your best soothing deep voice? Just say,
here we
hey,
go.
Close your eyes. You've done enough for today. The world can wait.
You've done enough. It will be okay.
The world can wait. Right now, it's just you and the quiet.
Go get some premium time with your family.
That's right. There you go. That's what we need. We're recording a drop of that.
That's
We're
right.
going to do premium. Pick up a premium weekend with the
You can
kids.
turn the text alerts off. You
Yeah.
can let it go this weekend.
I love that. That's great. It's like a little Tim on your shoulder. Just, hey, come on. I love it. Tim, we always enjoy our check-ins with you. We're excited about your new venture, 360 Aviation Advisors. All your information's in the show notes, of course. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have anything going on financially, I don't know how you can't talk to Tim. It's worth a 15-minute phone call. At least. Nothing else. Any other closing thoughts, Max, before we wrap up?
I think that's it. Tim,
right.
The lyrical gangster of finance has
That's right.
struck once again.
CFI.
Thank you.
New title today.
Yeah, you got a lot of titles.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right, Tim. Thanks.
The statements made in this show are our own opinions and do not reflect, nor were they under any direction from any of our employers.